Hi, good afternoon. My name is Roland Diva, and today I'd like to ask you what books grab you by the throat? What books force you to read them again and again? So today is the 18th of January, yeah, and I've already read three books this year, one of which I've read three times in a week. Now, I know that makes me sound like a voracious reader, but the truth is that I'm not. In fact, I'm a very slow reader, and I find it difficult to make time to read books just like everyone else does. But there's one book in particular that I'd like to talk about this year that forced me, it compelled me to read it three times in a week, which is just unheard of for me. I don't read that fast, yeah? So I read this book three times in a week, and this book forced me to listen and obey, like take notes and just use what it said. So what is this book? What is this magic book? And why am I telling you about it? Like, how is it going to help you? So the book is called Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit, which personally, I just love the title, yeah? And it's a book about storytelling, yeah? It's a book about how to succeed as a creative. It's a memoir, it's a, what did I call it? It's a storytelling guide. It's a manual for success, yeah? But it's also going to help you grow your business because it's all about storytelling. And as far as I'm concerned, the number one skill that will make the biggest difference in your business is storytelling. Yeah? Want to attract more of your ideal customer? Tell better stories. Want to sell more of your products, services, consulting, whatever it is? Tell better stories. Want to increase the trust with your tribe? Tell better stories. So how do you do that? That's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And I'm going to talk to you about it through the lessons that I've learned in Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit. So what's lesson number one? Lesson number one, and the most important lesson, is stories are experienced by the reader on the level of the soul. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, because like I said, this book, Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit, it's written by Steven Pressfield, and he has written in every type of genre. He's worked in advertising, he's written fiction novels, he's written non-fiction novels, he's written screenplays, he's written self-help books. So he knows, when it comes to writing in any genre, he knows how to do it. And, his account, it's a memoir, it's a storytelling guide, but it's also funny. Yeah, it's very funny, it's very serious, it's written in a conversational style. And it's filled with experience and research. So I'm going to come on to the research in a minute, but mainly it's filled with experience. But one of the things that he says is, whether you're talking about a TED Talk, an advertiser, an ad, on a Facebook ad or a magazine ad or whatever, yeah, a novel, a webinar, a sales presentation, or a self-help book, the ones that succeed do so because they obey the rules of storytelling. So when an idea is organized around the rules of storytelling, yeah, even when you're dealing with a topic that doesn't have characters, so in other words, you wouldn't associate it with a story because there isn't a character, yeah, but when they obey the rules of storytelling, they're enjoyed by the reader. And topics, stories, presentations that are enjoyed by the reader inspire people to take action. Yeah, and ultimately, that's what you want people to do. You don't just want people to sit and listen to you and go, yeah, that's great, and then get on with the rest of their day. You want to inspire them to take action. Now, what action are you talking about? Well, if you're giving a gardening presentation, it might be go out and build the garden of your dreams. Yeah. If it's a sales presentation, it might be, grab your wallet and go and sign up for my course or buy my product or whatever it is. Yeah. If you're dealing with, a team and you're trying to inspire them. Yeah. It's like, this is the goal. Here's how we're going to go. Yeah. Let's all get busy fast and let's achieve something we've never done before. So you inspire people to take action when you organize your ideas and your thoughts around the principles of storytelling. So what are the principles of storytelling? Yeah. So, well, before we talk about that, let's talk about the scientific research, because you might be thinking, Roland, this is basically crazy. What are you talking about? Yeah. And so, as I said, it's a memoir that's based on experience and research. And the research part of it talks about the collective unconscious. So this is work done by a psychologist called Carl Jung. And what he discovered through the dreams of his patients is that they all had a similar recurring dream. And what he realized is that this dream tapped into what Joseph Campbell called the hero's journey. So Joseph Campbell spent decades researching the myths, the folk tales, and the religious stories from around the globe. So stories from different periods in time, stories from different locations around the world, stories from different cultures and different religions. And what he discovered was that they all follow the same story structure, what he coined as the hero's journey. So these are, based in myths and religions and folk tales. Yeah. And what Carl Jung discovered is that this same hero's journey, if you like, is part of the collective unconscious, that this was found in the dreams of his patients. So the hero's journey, if you like, is a roadmap that we are all born with that tells us it's a guide for experiencing things in the real world. So if you want to persuade people, you need to obey these rules, because when you do, the listener or your audience or your reader says to himself, yeah, that story makes sense. Yeah. They experience it on the level of the soul. Yeah. They feel emotionally satisfied when they get to the end of your story. So let's look at the 10 steps of the hero's journey. And then I'm going to show you how you can tell your true inspirational story using that story structure. And you'll see that, you don't have to shoehorn your story into it. You'll see that, well, certainly in my case, it naturally falls into that. So what is the hero's journey? What are the 10 steps? So step number 1 is the hero starts in ordinary world. Number 2 is hero receives call to adventure. 3, hero rejects the call. 4, hero meets mentor. Mentor gives hero courage to accept the call. 5, hero crosses threshold and enters special world. 6, hero encounters enemies and allies, undergoes ordeal that will serve as his initiation. 7, hero confronts villain and acquires treasure. 8, the road back. Hero escapes special world trying to get home. 9, villains pursue hero. Hero must fight and escape again. And 10, hero returns home with treasure, reintegrates into the ordinary world, but now as a changed person, thanks to his ordeal and experiences on his journey. So that is the hero's journey as defined by Joseph Campbell. Yeah, that is also the story of the collective unconscious as discovered by Carl Jung. So how do you tell your story? How do you tell your personal inspirational story using that structure without lying? Because there's no point in lying. The whole purpose of this is to use it to tell an inspiring personal story, a true story that's going to, inspire people to change their lives. So let's look at the first 4 steps again. Hero starts an ordinary world. Hero receives call to adventure. Hero rejects the call. Hero meets mentor and gives him the courage to accept the call. So where did my story start? My story started, when did I hear the call to adventure? So my ordinary story starts in 2005 when I started a professional photography business, and that expanded into a graphic design studio as well. So for 3 years, my business doubled in turnover every year, and life was great. Yeah, I didn't know how or why it was growing, but it was growing, and that was all that mattered. And I was having a great time. I was able to do what I loved, and I was well paid for it. Couldn't ask for anything more. I just wanted to continue growing. Great. So then On Monday, the 15th of September, 2008, I felt a change. I knew that a change was coming. And I knew that, why did I know that that change was coming? Because I knew several entrepreneurs who their businesses had failed in the recession of the 90s. And I knew from their experience that the bank stopped lending, the bank called in the loan, and that kind of forced them to close the doors on their business, or literally they had the keys taken away from them. So I saw what had happened in terms of the financial crisis, and I kind of saw the future by looking at the past, or at least that's the way I saw it. I thought, this is what's likely to happen because this is what's happened before. So I kind of had an idea of what was going to happen. In other words, I received the call to adventure. And what do? I immediately rejected the call. Why? Because I had no idea of what to do. So I knew that I needed to change my business. I knew that I needed to do something different, or I needed to acquire customers in a different way. And did I do that? No. I did more of what I'd done before because that was what I knew. So I rejected the call. So I rejected the call, unfortunately, until circumstances forced me to close the doors of my business. In other words, I ran out of savings. I was, spending huge amounts of money on Google AdWords and Facebook ads, sending traffic to a website that did not tell people to pick up the phone if they wanted to work with me. And, ultimately, I wasn't generating inquiries. I wasn't generating new business. So I was forced to close the doors on that business. But as I closed the doors on that business, I said to myself, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to discover how marketing could make the cash register ring, how marketing could make money on demand without a sales team. But I had no idea if it was possible. I had no idea who could teach me if it was possible. And even if I found someone that could teach me, I didn't have the money to pay for them. So I had, no money, no idea, just belief. That was the situation that I found myself in. So what did I do? I did the only thing that I could, which was to get a job in marketing. So you could say that that was when I met a mentor, but that isn't. Yeah, that was just what I did next. Yeah, so I'm still rejecting the call at this point. So I then, I got a job in marketing, hoping that, my boss or someone else would, share the magic fairy dust with me. They would, give me a clue at least as to what steps to take next. So after a year or a year and a half working as a marketing manager and controlling the marketing for some of the biggest names in PC gaming in the UK, I realized that I wasn't going to learn these secrets just in my job. I realized that I had to invest in education. So I turned to traditional education because, if you wanted to be a marketing director, you had to have qualifications with the Chartered Institute of Marketing on your CV. So I thought, I can't lose. Do these qualifications. It's going to, I either discover what I want, and even if I don't, it's going to help my career progress. So I paid for these qualifications. It took me 2 years of my life, £6,000 of my own money, which at the time was an awful lot of money because I was only making £21,000 in my salary. So saving £3,000 a year from a £21,000 salary, that was a big sacrifice. A sacrifice not only for myself, but a sacrifice for my wife in terms of, not going on holiday and not being able to go out and just have fun like we would have done normally. So it was a time sacrifice and it was a financial sacrifice. That didn't give me the answers that I was looking for either. So still no mentor. So eventually I got another job, and my boss recommended that I read some books by a guy called Dan Kennedy. So that was the moment when I met a mentor. The mentor was Dan Kennedy, because here was a series of books and a guy who was saying, this is how marketing can make money on demand without a sales team. Like, this was what I'd been searching for. So one book led to another, which led to another. But from as far as the storytelling perspective goes, that was the moment when I met a mentor that gave me the courage to accept the call. So I was already on the journey, but, my journey didn't progress until I, got a guide to show me where I needed to go, how to get where I wanted to go. Until I got the guide or the mentor, I wasn't going anywhere. I was just treading water. So let's look at the next 3 steps. The next 3 steps are: hero crosses threshold and enters special world. So that's 5. 6 is hero encounters enemies and allies, undergoes ordeal that serves as his initiation, and hero confronts villain and acquires treasure. So let's look at step 5, which is hero crosses threshold and enters special world. So when I was first learning about direct response marketing, which is, if you like, the textbook name for how marketing can make money on demand without a sales team. Yeah. When I was first learning about this, I felt like I'd entered a special world because so few people knew about this. Like, this really was a niche within a niche within a niche. So how many people who work in marketing know about direct response? Hardly any. Even if they know the term, they don't know what it means or how to do it. They're clueless. So, and these are the people that work within marketing. How many just entrepreneurs that don't know much about marketing know any of the principles of direct response marketing? Hardly any. So I felt like I'd entered this special world. But I immediately encountered villains. So what were the villains? The villains, of course, was failure. Yeah? So reading is fun. Great. I enjoy reading. Making time to read is a challenge. But I read some books, and then every time I learned something new, I applied what I'd learned in my job and with my consulting clients. And every time I learned something new, I got an increase in response. So that's great. Real world proof that this works. But it felt like an awful lot of work for a tiny increase in response. Now, maybe that's just me being a baby, and I just needed to grow up and accept that these were the rules. Yeah. But hey, and I was doing it. It wasn't like I wasn't prepared to do the work, but it just felt hard. It felt really hard. So at what point does the hero confront the villain and acquire treasure? Well, I was confronting the villain every day for, a minimum of 3 hours a day for several years. In other words, learning, applying what I knew, dealing with the villain of, real world feedback, i.e. failure, or, just did I achieve the result that I hoped for, or did I need to learn some more? Did I need to work harder? So at what point does the hero acquire treasure? So the point in which I acquired treasure was when I put together what was called a product launch, and I accidentally made £673,000 in just 9 days. Now, why do I say accidentally? I say accidentally because I put together this system. I had no idea if you could sell a £2,000 workshop from the page. Yeah, I had no idea if you could sell a £2,000 workshop from a webinar. I'd never done it before. So it was testing an idea that I had tried out once before. So I did know it worked in the real world, but I didn't know if it would work for a product at this price point. And to my shock and delight, yes, it worked. It worked better than my wildest imagination. So what happens next? Yeah. So if we jump to, so you could say that's where the story ends. But if we jump to step 10, which is hero returns home with treasure, reintegrates into ordinary world, but now a changed person thanks to his ordeal and the experiences of his journey. So this is the key point. Yeah. What was the emotion that I felt? What was, the result of those hardships and sacrifices and facing the villain on a daily basis of learning and implementing, getting real world feedback, dealing with disappointments, yeah? And then equally dealing with this shock result, yeah? What was the result? Well, guess what? That moment was crossing a whole new threshold for me. Why? Because I knew instantly that I'd entered a new world of possibilities, a world of unlimited options in terms of, helping other people to grow their business. And I knew that I had to take that experience and put it into a system so that I could repeat that level of success again and again. So how did that change me as a person? Well, it gave me a whole new sense of confidence and security. So that was great. Yeah. It also proved that, years of dedication and learning, and when I say learning, it's trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle without knowing where the pieces are or how many you need to find. Yeah. So it was a very chaotic experience. And of course, with that kind of chaotic experience, you're going to have setbacks. You're going to go down dead ends. You're going to have false starts. And, what does that mean? That means, you're going to lose motivation. It's going to be hard. So the beauty of, the gaining that treasure is that I could see for the first time, here was the real world feedback that guess what? Putting in that work, it pays. It pays off. It's worth doing. Yeah. And that was how it changed me. So without, so what does storytelling take? When I teach storytelling, I basically try and take the hero's journey and simplify it. So how do I simplify it? I simplify it to 3 steps. I say, tell me about the moment, or describe the moment when you were caught in a thunderstorm without an umbrella. In other words, the moment when something outside of your control forced you to make a change. So that's moment number 1. Moment number 2, what struggles did you go through on your journey? In other words, tell me about the villain. How many struggles did you go through? How hard were those struggles? And equally, tell me how those struggles made you feel. And then step 3 is, what does the end of the rainbow look like? So there you have, a very simple way to tell your story. It's got the classic 3-act structure. In other words, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But if you just tell your story, just the facts, it will be incredibly boring and it will not inspire people to change their lives. Why? Because you've left out the most important ingredient, the magic fairy dust, as I would like to say, and that is emotion. So how do you put emotion into your story? That requires courage. Courage not to tell me what happened, but courage to say, how did that make you feel? What was the impact of that win or loss on your family? What was the impact on your own motivation, how you felt about yourself, your own self-esteem, your self-worth? Yeah? Guess what? Nobody likes getting punched in the face by real world feedback. Nobody likes to wake up the next morning with a concussion. But when you do you get back up with a new sense of resolve? Do you, feel more determined to achieve your goal? Or do you just want to get out of the ring and never return? Because what makes your story interesting is why you got back up and why you kept fighting, why you went down swinging, and ultimately why you were able to defeat the villain and win the treasure. That, telling your audience how you felt when these things happened, that's how you put emotion into your story. That's the magic fairy dust that makes your stories interesting. That's the magic fairy dust that makes people remember your stories. That's what inspires them to change their life. That's what satisfies your audience emotionally, so that unconsciously they say, yeah, this story rings true. They feel like they've just eaten a delicious meal at the end of your story. So what would I like to say? I'd like to say, I hope you use that simple story structure to tell your stories better. Yeah? Break it into those 3 parts, beginning, middle, and end. Yeah? Have the courage to put the emotion into the story, how the events made you feel, and that will change your business. Yeah, that will help you attract your ideal customer. That will help you earn their trust, and that will help you to make them feel good about buying. So, what books have grabbed you by the throat? Yeah, please leave a comment to say what books you've read multiple times. Yeah, it could be books you've read this year, it could be books you've read previously, but what books would you recommend? Because I'm always looking out for new books to read. I'm always looking for book recommendations. So what books have you read multiple times? What books have compelled you? They've grabbed you by the throat and forced you to obey and listen. So until next time, carpe diem.